Hello again and welcome. Michael Pizzolla here. I'd like to welcome you to this edition of the Value Capping Video Rant. This is the 2016 Kentucky Derby Rant. Can you believe it? Derby is here already. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Pizzolla. I am the author of the best-selling book, Handicapping Magic, co-author of the classic Pace Makes the Race. I'm the publisher of Post Time Daily 2.0, the greatest past performance software anywhere, a publisher of Black Magic Ultimate Handicapping software, and the forthcoming Value Capper software. And I'll have some news for you at the end of this video. Now, you know, for those of you who have been following me, and these Kentucky Derby rants, I'm always squawking. Oh my God, it's a 20 colt field. Sometimes there's a filly in there. Sometimes there are foreign horses. But these are untested colts at 1.25 miles, mostly champions. I mean, it's a handicapping mess. And I got to tell you, this year is not too different. Having said that, I think that there are some possibilities in this year's edition of the Kentucky Derby. But rather than just say, you know, hey, who do you like in the Derby? Well, let me think. I think that Nyquist is a good horse. Well, yeah, duh. Okay, everybody knows that. He's 7 for 7. He's a champion. He's obviously going to be at or near the top of anyone's line. He's a 3-to-1 morning favorite. Mohaymen is a strong horse. Exaggerator is a strong horse. I could just say, yeah, those are the horses. What big deal? 3 morning line favorites. Should be a pretty heavy favorite in Nyquist. And we could look at, if the race goes early, a horse like Danzig Candy. If the race goes late, a horse like Sudden Breaking News, for example. There you go. Thanks. There's your rant. Goodbye. No. Any race, any one specific race, doesn't matter so much. What matters, I believe, after doing this a long time, is the approach of value capping. It's very, very different than just handicapping. I think of them as 2 stages in one's development as an investor at the racetrack. One is the stage 1. It's handicapping, trying to figure out all the numbers. Who's going to win the race? Who's got the pace advantage? All of those myriad of handicapping factors. Those are complex and all the rest of it. Now, if you've got a good piece of software like Black Magic or the upcoming Value Capper or whatever you use to make a line and all of that, much of that is automated for you. You still got to use some good sense, and you still have to have a good understanding of the handicapping factors. But much, much, much more important is the transition to value capping. Value capping just doesn't mean finding a good price. It means identifying where the value might be in the race. Whether that's because there's a weak favorite, whether that's because you have so many extras and patterns and suitability to the pace of the race on your horse that it will offset it not having the absolute top number. And then you have to wait until you get your price. So rather than just say, here's who I like, here's what my software came up with, no. I want to give you a really comprehensive object lesson in how these 2 interplay, how handicapping and value capping kind of coalesce to give you a really good picture of the race. Every year I tell you to look at the undercards. Look at the undercards because, you know, the Derby's a mess. I think there are 10 or 11 horses above random. Yeesh. There's going to be scads of overlays. Not the kind of race I want to look at. And it just so happens that there are 3 other races on the Churchill Downs card this year. One, the first race, very, very simple. Second is the second race, a little less simple, but very manageable. Then there's a race where you have to do a little work on. It's the 11th race, nice turf race. Could be some big prices. And finally, there is the Derby, which is the mother of all complexity. So I think just the way the races fell this year, there's a slew of good lessons to be learned about handicapping, value capping. For those of you not familiar with my work, we're going to get into some pretty wonky stuff about energy expenditure and all. Don't worry about the details. Worry about the big picture. Zoom out and see how the issues of finding the price in the race finding the value in the race is really what value capping is all about. So whenever you're ready, come along with me. We'll go to the computer. You look over my shoulder as I handicap and value cap the 2016 Kentucky Derby. So welcome back, and this is the look over my shoulder part of this 2016 Kentucky Derby video. Now, the Derby is always a tricky race because there are 20, and this year, colts that are running. They've never gone a mile and a quarter. You know all of that. I mean, those of you who've been around racing for a while know that it's a very, very difficult race to handicap and usually to value cap, meaning that there are many handicapping factors that go into it. And also, there tend to be so many potential overlays. It's not the clean kind of race that I usually like to invest in. And I will show you some of those on the undercards. But for now, let's take a look. And bear in mind, I'm speaking to you on Thursday morning, the Thursday before the Derby. The Derby is on Saturday, May the 7th this year. I'm talking to you on Thursday, May the 5th. It's the morning time here in Las Vegas. I don't know what the also eligibles are going to do and so forth. So the first thing I'm going to do is go and scratch these also eligibles. And I am, you're looking at Black Magic, the classic Black Magic. Oh, I see I've done that already. Lauban, which was originally the fulcrum in the race, and Cherry Wine are scratched. Now, obviously, if another of the horses, pulls a muscle or something during a gallop, and one of those is in, it will change this slightly, but not too much. So I've already done those permutations. So the first thing to notice, you see there's a big red line under the horse, the 4-horse Mo Tom. That's the random line. Okay, so there are 20 horses in a race. Random is 19 to 1. In other words, if it was just a random thing, there would be 19 losers, 1 winner, so 19 to 1 if all 20 colts go. So the random line is 19 to 1. The horses above 18 to 1 on the line are above random. The ones below are below random. Now, bear in mind, that's all based on our numbers, our ways of getting the running lines, and so forth. And there's a lot of science in that. This program is going to be replaced later in this year with Black Magic 2, which we're calling Value Capper, which is a completely different kind of look at the race. But the basics of patterns and numbers are still going to be the same. Now, maybe the first thing that I should show you are what are called reversals. Now, the reversal race is a value concept. And the concept is if 2 horses run against each other in their last race, and one of them beats the other, very often the public will overbet the horse that beat the other horse and underbet the horse that lost to the other horse. We used to think of this back when I was with that big pace group, that there was somehow something magical about this, that a reversal horse was kind of due to win. And there's a certain amount of truth to that in the way the horses are coming to form cycles, but you can't generalize. In other words, it's not a handicapping or predictive principle. The way I look at it is a price principle. Now, in this Derby, there are 6 reversals. The first 3 horses in the reversal horses are coming out of the Arkansas Derby, which Creator won. Sudden Breaking News and Whitmore are coming out of that race. And by the way, there's no order to these races, the way the reversal races are designated, whether one is reversal race 1 or reversal race 2. It's basically just out of their post position order. So they're just because something is designated as reversal race 1, it doesn't mean it's better than reversal race 2. They're just reversers. The second reversal race is the Louisiana Derby, which was won by Gunrunner. And coming out of that race is Tom's Ready and Tom. So the big reversal race in this Derby is, of course, the Florida Derby. This is the one where Nyquist ran just such a tremendous race. And the horses coming out of that was our Majesto, who had just broken its maiden, finished second at 21-1. My gosh. And Mohaymen. I still don't know how to pronounce that, and I've heard several different permutations. And Mohaymen, after being, 5 for 5, I don't know if he didn't like the off track or whatever, but he's coming out of that race. The fourth reversal race is the Wood Memorial, won by Outwork. We've got Trojan Nation and Shagath coming out of that. The fifth reversal race is the Santa Anita Derby, won in going away style by Exaggerator. Coming out of that race are More Spirit and Danzig Candy. I want to talk a little bit about that race as we get further into the analysis. That's very interesting. And part of the reason is you see in AFPs, these are advanced form patterns. In most run-of-the-mill races, you will find one or several of these patterns, even in a smaller field. In championship races, such as the Kentucky Derby, you usually don't see these because in these lesser races, you get trainers and owners kind of saying, well, we'll put this horse in and we won't really try in this race. Or it's over its head, we're not going to hurt the horse, and we'll aim for the next race where we got a softer spot. So you see more of these patterns. Obviously, in these championship races where all of these horses are running in and winning graded races, you don't see those kinds of patterns. And so in this race, out of all these 20 colts, the only horse with a pattern is Danzig Candy, and we'll get into that in a second. And finally, the last reversal race is the Bluegrass, out of which comes Brody Cause and My Man Sam. That only leaves, I think, 2 or 3 horses not in a reversal. There's Destin, who won the Tampa Bay Derby. There's Lanny, the Japanese-bred horse, who just won the UAE Derby, and we have absolutely no numbers for this. So this is a big unknown that we can treat almost like a first-time starter. And finally, there's Oscar nominated. It's the only horse in the race out of the Grade 3 Spiral Stakes, which it won at 24-1. So that's the reversal. So all of these horses have run against, most of them have run against other horses in this field. All right. Now, let's look at our odds line. And the first thing to notice about the odds line, besides how big it is in terms of how many horses above random, is that the top horse, even by our numbers, even by all the analysis we have done, is 7-1. That means if by our own numbers, if they run the race 8 times, I only expect to win it once. What does that mean? Well, I don't expect to win very much on that kind of odds line, number one. Number two, you've got to make sure to get a tremendous price to offset that risk, the risk of only 1 out of 8 times who you win. And that's by your own numbers. And that's what often happens in these big fields. Now, I expect, of course, there's going to be a lot of prices in the race, and that's the other problem. One issue is that there are no overlays in a race, and you got to pass because you agree with the public. The other is, my gosh, there's like a buffet. There's just too much food, and in certain cases, as may be the case in this race, there may be too many overlays. Now, Mohaymen and Nyquist, I always want to call him NyQuil, which I haven't taken in years, but Mohaymen and Nyquist are going to be bet in this race, and they are the first and third morning line favorites. Nyquist is a very heavy morning line favorite. The second morning line favorite is Exaggerator at 8-1. So I have 2 of the 3 morning line favorites on top. Looking at Mohaymen, I wonder why. Wow, that's a big gap from 7-1 to 10-1. And if we do a little deeper analysis, we can see that looking at his master pace numbers, We've got 150, 161 and a half, 166, 151. That 166 seems really big. So here, let's play a little what if. Maybe that Holy Bull was just too big a race, and we can exclude that race and see what happens. Well, Mohaymen still comes up in the top 3 horses. Okay, or colts. Forgive me if I say horses and colts. You know I mean colts, okay? So it doesn't really change things. It puts him from top to 3rd, but it's still in there with Nyquist. So that's interesting. The other big puzzle, I think, in this race is right up at the top of the screen. A lot of the numbers that are selected for the horses and how the odds line is composed has to do with the pace projection of the race. Now, there are 2 projections which usually are in the same ballpark. So in other words, you might see a race projected positionally as pressured, and you might see it as velocity as highly pressured. Those are the 2 different ways of looking at how a race will shape up. Now, in this race, it's very interesting because positionally, there is a lone early horse, and that's the Danzig horse, the horse number 20, Danzig Candy. However, if you look at the other side, where it's based on velocity, it's highly pressured. So now, my gosh, what are we going to do? Well, if you looked at the race by eye and you go through the past performances, I'll let you do this on your own if you want to see it very quickly. You know, Nyquist looks like he can run for any style. He's come off the pace, run on the thing, run on the lead. Destin looks like it's a short closer. Mohaymen looks like it can run on the lead or short close. Sudden Breaking News looks like a deep closer. Majesto looks like a closer. Exaggerator can close from way back. So can Creator. Oscar Nominator looks like a short closer. Whitmore looks like it's a deep closer, as is Motom. Outwork looks like an early horse. More Spirit looks like it can make a short close. Shagaff looks like it can make a short close. Tom's Ready looks like a closer. Danzig Candy, on the other hand, is pretty early horse. We'll get back to that horse later. Lanny, we don't know. And my man Sam looks like a closer. We can go right down there. So, in other words, and look at Brody's Cause, deep closer. Trojan Nation looks like a closer. So, by eye and positional goes by eye, it kind of replicates what we would see by eye. When you see that many closers in a race, you think, oh my gosh, this is going to go to an early horse. And that's why positionally Danzig Candy comes up there. But the highly pressured comes from if you actually crunch the numbers and look at acupressure, you see there are so many horses and close together at the top. Nyquist, of course, looks like it will get part of the lead along with Outwork and Danzig Candy, Shagaff maybe. And you see some of those same horses in the second call. So from a numbers crunching point of view, this can be a highly pressured race. Oh my gosh, what do? Do I play it early or do I play it late? Well, you can play what-if games. Warning, warning, warning. I don't recommend doing this very often because it can lead to confusion. So if the race went early and we set it up as early, guess what? Nyquist, Mohaymen, and Exaggerator come up now to the top. Now, remember, those are the 3 morning line favorites. So we haven't done ourselves a lot of good there in terms of looking for value. Well, Mohaymen is 10-1, but he's also 10-1 on the line on this line, so that's not much of an overlay. From the neutral side, Nyquist and Mohaymen. Now remember, Mohaymen, we took its big number away, and we still see Exaggerator pretty much tied for 4th on the line, or tied for 3rd, really, with Destin. And on the late side, we've got Nyquist, Destin, Mohaymen, and Sudden Breaking News. Well, is there some insight we can get from looking at past races? And if we were to look at the track profiles, and this is getting a bunch of results charts and analyzing them of how the winner ran. Now, as you might imagine, they don't run a whole lot of 1.25 mile races at Churchill Downs, certainly not for younger horses.
So we have to go way back, and let's go all the way back to, I don't know. Let's go back to 2009, and let's go back to January of 2009. And we still only see 6 races that I have in this database. Now, I'm missing a few years because I use a different computer. Long story, but I remember pretty much. So there are 2 derbies. There's the 2015 Derby right there on the top with the 51.88 energy percentage. And that was American Pharaoh. And then we have the 2012 Derby. I'll have another, as I recall. And that's a 51.77. Now, that's very interesting. Those are almost identical. But if you look at some of the other races, like there's the 2010 Breeders' Cup Classic, my memory, maybe blame, 50.47, which is very, very late. The 2011 Breeders' Cup Classic, that was Drosselmeyer, very, very late at 50.18. We have some maiden special weight that ran at 49.50. And we have some allowance race that ran in 2014 at very, very late. So all these races are very, very late, except the Derby, which is kind of in the middle, in the mid-51s, which for those who like the old-time terminology, we would say it's a sustained presser. It's kind of close to the lead, but it has still has energy left at the end. And if you notice in the Derby, I'll have another was 7 lengths back at the first call, 6.5 lengths back. So positionally, it was kind of mid-pack, first third of the field, whereas American Pharaoh was 3rd at the first call and 3rd at the second call last year. But they still expended their energy in the same way. And most of the champions who have won the Triple Crown races tend to run that style, kind of close up and then making a big move. So great. So where does that leave us? Well, if we were to say neutral because it's that kind of style, then we would be looking at the race like this. And again, the issue that I have with this lookout at the race is that I'm looking at the 3 morning line favorites, Nyquist, Mohaymen, and Exaggerator. I've got Destin in here, and I've got 2 issues with Destin being so high. The number one is that it's on a layoff. Most of these horses have run more recently. Now, the layoff's only back from March, but it is a couple of months. The horse has been working well. And the other issue is that its numbers come from Tampa Bay. Those often, for some reason, get exaggerated a little bit when they're compared with some of the Churchill races. And again, no number is perfect. Our numbers are really good. The ones in Value Capper Black Magic 2 are better. And so I'm a little bit wary about them. I know I was looking at Carpe Diem last year, which also came out of the Tampa Bay races, and he really didn't run to his numbers. So I'm a little skittish about this. So by this kind of analysis, I am a little bit stuck on the 3 morning line favorites. I don't know how heavily they will be bet, but I doubt I will get an overlay. Obviously, Nyquist is the quote-unquote best horse in the field. I mean, good gosh. The colt is 7 for 7. Never lost a race. It's got the earnings. It's earned $3 million in its career. It won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year. I mean, this is a champion. This is a legitimate favorite, and it's at the top of this line. And no matter how you sort this, early, late, or neutral, it's going to be at the top of the line. And that's as it should be. You want a piece of software that is not going to, and even if you're looking for value, you don't just want to put every long shot on the top because what the heck, you don't need a software program. Just go bet the long shots and, bring an umbrella because you're going to have a long, a long rainstorm of runouts in that case. So you have to kind of be intelligent and look for your spots. Now, if I were to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to go back and I'm going to trust Mohaymen's number. I'm going to put that number back in. Then it becomes kind of an easier race. Mohaymen is going to be, on the top there. Let me reset the entire race. And you can do that, and sometimes you do work like this. There it is. I thought it was 7-1. In this case, it's an easy race. Look, I got Mohammed at 7-1. I'll bet him at 15-1, which is like double my odds. The morning line is 10-1. It's third morning line choice. Probably won't get the price there. Nyquist definitely won't get 15, 20-1 on the horse. The Colt's going to be the favorite. Destin, I have an issue with it. Would I bet it at 25-1? I don't know. I don't like it. If we go into real kind of la-la land, we're looking at sudden breaking news, who was second in the Arkansas Derby to Creator. Made a very big move. It's got very nice late fractions. Its energy percentage is a little late for the race, but if all the speed collapses, this is the horse that could be sitting back there and closing. What would I need on it? Well, my odds on the late side are 14-1. I would need something like its contention line of 30-1 to invest, and even then I wouldn't be very hopeful. So you see how all of this comes together. It's not that when we value cap, we do no handicapping. Of course not. In fact, this line is based on handicapping. But we make our decisions based on value. Now, I contradicted myself a little bit. I'm a little wary about this Destin horse. If he's sitting up there at 40-1, I may have a shot with him. But I don't think I'm going to get to bet Mohamed or Nyquist based on the odds. I just don't. If the race goes positional and it goes early, it brings some other horses in, Shagath and Outwork, who are going to be, I think, a little too early in terms of energy expenditure. So Shagath is in the 52s, 53s. That's very, very early. Outwork is a little early, but a lot of these are champions, and they could. Now, I want to go back to a horse I mentioned earlier, which is Danzig Candy, that finished fourth way back to Exaggerator in the Santa Anita Derby. And this is an interesting colt in this field. First thing, it's the only colt in the field that has patterns. It's got what I call a type 1. In other words, it won the San Felipe, second race back. It had a good finish. In fact, that was its third win in a row. It won its maiden, won an allowance, won a grade 2. And then it ran a relaxing race, took the lead in the Santa Anita Derby, and then faded. And it was bet pretty heavily. It was 7-5, 8-5. So often what the public will do with that, and again, all these patterns are not predictive things. They are value things. So the public looks at the top race. 13 lengths back. Yuck. But what caught my eye was if you look at the 3 wins that it had. Its maiden race on December 26th. Its allowance race on February 4th. Its San Felipe win. And then you go over and you look at the percentage energy. You see 51.99, 51.91, 52.2. For an early positional horse, those numbers are pretty close to what the track profile energy percentage is for 1 1/4 at Churchill Downs. So that's an interesting horse that I will probably use at some place in my exotics. And then if I'm going to look at Exaggerator as a potential bet, I'm going to look at the other horses out of that race, including More Spirit, and I may use that in my exotics as well. So on the late side, I would be looking to sudden breaking news. I would be watching the earlier races that on Saturday at the Kentucky Derby to see if the closers can really close from way back, or if the speed is hanging on. And again, I don't do this on normal days. On a normal day, if I saw an arc like this with 10, 12 horses above random and so many potential prices, you got sudden breaking news, Destin is a question. I would pass this race so quickly But it's the Derby. I'm supposedly an expert. I'm supposedly supposed to have an opinion on this. Well, my opinion is, okay, it's the Derby. Once a year, we make a kind of recreational bet. Well, not once a year. We're going to do that in the Preakness, aren't we? And on the Belmont Stakes and the Breeders' Cup and right down the line. But I like much simpler races than this. On the late side, I'm probably looking, again, the issue I have is no matter how I sort this race, I'm looking at Mohaymen and Nyquist, which I think are going to be the favorites along with Exaggerator on the early side. If I think it's going to go early, those are the horses with the numbers, and they're the top 3 morning line favorites. I might be looking for Danzig Candy at, a bomb price. I mean, 30 to 1 or so, 35 to 1, but it's 15 to 1 morning line. So I don't, and I'm looking so far deep in the line. Don't like to do that. Neutral, which is say, hey, I give up. I don't know if this is going to go early or late. Still looking at Mohaymen and Nyquist and Exaggerator. Destin, I've got a big question mark on. So this is a very unclear late. On the late side, I would have to say, okay, give me 30 to 1. If I see a race or two earlier in the card that a horse closes and is able to win, I might take Sudden Breaking News at 30 to 1. But structuring is going to be a little tricky because I think everyone with a form and so forth is going to be all over Nyquist. And I think Mohaymen and Exaggerator will be bet as well. And, of course, we also have Lanny, the 8 horse, with that Japanese-bred horse, the winner of the UAE Derby, which we don't know. We have no numbers on. So if you're looking at betting a really long price, whether it's Danzig Candy or Sudden Breaking News, or if you get a big price on Mohaymen, you may want to throw that unknown in tiny little exotic boxes. So that's my analysis. It's from a handicapping point of view, the issue is how this race will shape up. Usually I have a more coherent, agreeing pace position analysis, and that the positional and the velocity go along in the same type. In other words, they'll both be kind of late, they'll both be kind of unknown, they'll both be kind of early. Here I have the polar opposites, lone early or highly pressured. So I have to look from both sides. And again, if you get confused during this process, I believe, I may be mistaken about this, but I found this to stand me in good stead. If you're confused about a race, you don't really know, and one horse doesn't pop out, then just stay out. Okay? And that's why I urge looking at the undercards. So let me give you an example. I was just looking through some of the other races at Churchill. Now, here's a race I'm more likely to look at. Okay, first of all, look at the pace position. You got heavy pressure and highly pressured. Well, good gosh. That's the way I like to see it. And I've got above that red line, I've only got 3 horses to deal with. The 1, the 2, and the 7. Easy squeezy. If you look in the layoff column, the 1 and the 2 are both off layoffs. Okay. The odds line is pretty close, 3 to 1, 7 to 2, 4 to 1. So if I'm looking at the horse not on a layoff, the 7 Den's Legacy, right? It's only 4 to 1. The top horse is only 3 to 1. Hoo-ha. Contention, which is what I think the horse will go off, is 7 to 1. That's a decent overlay. The morning line is 12 to 1. And look, it's got a type 1 and type 2. It's the only pattern in the race. It ran a good race second back. It tried Keeneland, didn't do so well. Now it's coming to Churchill. It's got a win at a mile. It's finished second and third once out of 4 races. I mean, yeah, give me 7 or 8 to 1 on this horse, and yeah. But you see how quick that analysis is compared to a messy race like the Derby. Or the second race at Churchill Downs. Now, I know these are very early. I mean, the first race goes off 7:30 in the morning out here, 10:30 in Kentucky. Here you have Racer at the top. Now, you've only got 5 horses above random. You got Racer right at the top. Now, looks pretty decent. Here again, it's a highly pressured race. Got a lot of highly pressured races coming up. And the 2 horses that interest me are Racer. It's 12 to 1 morning line. It's only 4 to 1 contention. That means I don't think I'll get a price on that. But here's a horse that interests me called the Colonel. Now, most people will say, look at its last race. It finished ninth, almost dead last, next to last or something. 25 lengths back. This is a dead piece. But second race back, admittedly in the slop at Fairgrounds, ran a really nice race. It's a closer, looks to me. And it's taking the blinkers off. Gosh, I hope they don't try to get involved in the speed duel. But it's the only pattern in the horse. It's got a type 1. And again, second back, it ran well. Last race, it didn't run so well. So I'd be looking at the board and looking at the 7 and the 9 in this race. Pretty simple value equation. And lastly, on the undercard, let me reset this because I know I had done some work on this race. This is a turf race. And turf races often come off as pressured and unknown. Once again, we can look to our track profiles for help. We'll have to go back. I don't think we have to go back quite so far because they run a few more mile and an eighth races than that. It's so handy to have these track profiles. And you just look at historically how they run: 47.92, 49.26, 48.63, 50.03, and so forth. It's very, very late. So in this case, it's on the turf. The profile is very, very late. I'm going to give myself the liberty to sort it late. Now, before we sort it, we've got prices all over, the 2, the 1, the 5, and the 8. When we sort it late, this 1 and this 8 come up very nicely. The 1, we don't know what it did in its last 2 races because those are marathons, not susceptible, in my opinion, to intelligent pace analysis. And then we have Divisadero, the 8 horse. It's third start after a layoff. It's a reverser to the 5 reporting star. Sure, why not? I mean, I get my prices on those horses. I'll have bets on them. I'll use the 5, maybe the 2. I don't know. The Big Blue Kitten, the big favorite. Again, we don't really know what this is going to do because it's the last few races are all marathons, so we have no numbers on that. But this is a very good turf horse, and it's on a layoff. So I may have a vulnerable favorite here because of that layoff. And it's done well after layoffs. It's won off a layoff before. It won the Fort Marcy, a grade 3 after a layoff. But if I'm getting, 15 to 1 on one of these horses, I'll take it. I'll put it in with some of these other bombs. Certainly going to use the 5, which is the winner of the Appleton, where Grantito and Divisadero. But I'm kind of looking at this Divisadero very, very closely. So from the first race, very, very simple. Second race, not so simple. But you can look at 2 horses, should be value. To this race, which is, you have to change the bias in a little bit. So, again, at every level of complexity, I increase the price that I require. So this way, after the race, if it doesn't work out and I have to throw out the ticket, I say, you know what? Yeah, I knew there was this uncertainty, but I was getting so well compensated. On the other hand, you fall in love with a horse that's 9 to 2 on your line, and you just can't resist, and you bet him at 5 to 1, and it runs up the track, and you say, why did I take that risk? I should have been looking at 9 to 1, not 9 to 2. Okay, and then, mother of all complex races, we have the Churchill Downs 12th, the Kentucky Derby. Normal day, I pass. Too much going on. Because it's the Derby, I'm going to see if I get a price on Mohaman. I would need a huge price and some confirmation on closings to bet sudden breaking news. Again, on the other lookouts at the race, I'm looking at the 3 morning line favorites. So if there is a decided bias in the next couple of days on the early side, I'm probably going to stay out of the race. I will use Danzig Candy in some of the exotics. There's something about this Santa Anita Derby that intrigues me about this horse. It's the only pattern. I've got More Spirit that ran a kind of strange race. And again, I would have to get very, very, very big prices on to even consider it because it's so far down on the line. From a value point of view, again, if it goes very, very late, I would look to Mohaman. I don't think I'm going to get anywhere near like the 15 to 1 that I'm going to need on that horse to bet it. don't think I'm going to get certainly won't get a price on Nyquist. Destin, I would be very reluctant to bet this unless it was an enormous price in the 30 to 1 range, and I still would hold my nose making the bet. Sudden breaking news. Now, if you're playing off this line and you look up and you've got 4 overlays and you just think, oh, which one that are, well, you know what? Make a $2 bet if you want to, and just to have something to root for. But as far as a professional level bet, no. Some of those other races that I showed you on the undercard, yeah, those are more like it. Okay, so I hope this gives you an insight. And again, this is done just as I would handicap/value cap right from the software. So you see there's an interplay between handicapping and value capping, but the final decision does not come from a deterministic point of view, just like how I would handle Destin. If I get a very, very, very big price on that, yes, I would invest. And if it's the only overlay. So price will always be the deciding value, but not just any price. We don't just willy-nilly bet long shots. We bet them when they have other things going for them. That's why the Danzig Candy being the lone early, being the only pattern in the race, it kind of it troubles me, and I want to have that running for me in the exotics. So that's the analysis of the 2016 Kentucky Derby. I hope it helps you in a couple of ways. One, to clarify your thinking on the race itself, and two, to give you an insight into how the dynamics of stage 1, some of the handicapping stuff that we like to use, but stage 2 of value capping is really where the rubber hits the road, and we let price be our ultimate guide. Price based on good numbers, a good line, good patterns, and so forth.
Well, that's it for this year's 2016 Kentucky Derby value capping video. I really hope you enjoyed that. I really hope that you get some ongoing value out of seeing what value capping is all about. I don't care what numbers you use, what software you use. Do I think my software is the best? Yeah, of course, otherwise I wouldn't use it myself. I'd be using something else. But more important is the technique of finding a horse you like that the public shouldn't and getting your price. It's so key. And I hope those lessons have come through. Now, I told you I'd have some news. The big breaking news is that my work on the internals of Value Capper software, which is Blackmagic 2.0, is done. The numbers are refined as far as they're going to go. The techniques have been changed and refined as far as it's going to go. We've run it through hundreds of thousands of races. It's a wonder. What I have to do next, so many technical things. It's going to be coming with an instructional video site like you've never seen before. This is just going to be awesome. Now, having said that, lots of technical issues with that. There's a streamlined security device. Those of you who have Blackmagic 1 and that big old green dongle that we call it, we're using a much more streamlined device. It's got different algorithms and all kinds of stuff in it, but it's streamlined so it'll work with your tablet and your smaller machines. It's beautiful. Of course, beautiful, but it needs reprogramming, and there's a lot of work involved in it. So thank you for being patient. Be patient. I promise you this is going to blow you away and be well worth waiting for. The other thing, and bless you, all of you who are supporters of Post Time and all of that, I announced a few months ago that there was going to be a price increase starting in May. I actually got some calls saying, hey, wait a minute, where's the price increase? Well, we've been able to put it off for another month. So those price increases won't go until June. June 1st, you'll be getting a letter in the mail about it. And, we've absorbed the last 3 price increases. We haven't had a price increase on our unlimited data or on our forum for 7-8 years. This last one was a doozy. We're going to just pass most of it along, not even all of it. So the forum is going from $29 to $37. The unlimited data is going from $79 to $87. So it's about a $15, $16 increase. And yet, what you get for that price is still lower than any of our competitors' just past performances. So you get past performances, results charts, every race in North America for the month. And it works with Post-Time Daily 2.0. It works with all our software, including Blackmagic. It'll work with ValueCapper. And you get ongoing support via a forum. You get access to our community. You get a monthly video where we go over races and talk about strategies and philosophies and mindsets and all. It's a tremendous bargain. If it were double the increased price, I still think it would be a great bargain for you. So anyway, I wanted to let you know that those of you who have ever been on the forum or have ever gotten that unlimited data from us, those are just going to be people who have Blackmagic or ValueCapper. You'll be getting a letter about it. If you don't want it anymore, you say, look, I don't think it's worth the extra few bucks a month, just go to your account on Post-Time Daily. You can cancel it in 2 clicks. Or if you're not comfortable with that, call our office. Go to our website, posttimedaily.com. The number is there, 702-889-2814. Just call the office. Tell them, hey, you know what, I'm going to cancel. I'm going to suspend for a little while. No problem, no issues, no questions asked. It's absolutely fine. But I think you're going to love it. I know I've been saying this for a while, but ValueCapper is really going to be worth waiting for. And when you see the way that it's going to be taught and all the instructional materials, you're just going to be blown away. Anyway, good luck at the Derby, good luck at the races, good luck in your life. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for giving me your attention and your time. There are not too many of us that are as passionate and love the game as our group, and I just think that's fantastic. I wish you continued success. Write me. It's busy during Kentucky Derby week, and I'm doing some interviews and so forth. So if I don't get right back to you, be patient. But you can always write me. It's michael@posttimedaily.com, and I'll get back to you. It's been so inspiring to hear of your successes and your progress. Till next time, this is Michael Pizzolla saying all the best to you, enjoy, and most of all, let the bet make you. I'll see you next time.